David has a passionate love for his God, his people, his family, and his country, and he will stand and face a man that's twice as big as him. Because he's like, nobody's going to talk about my God this way. That's called love, man. We're in the story of David and Goliath in 1 Samuel 17. And last week, if you remember the sermon last week, it was about how that everybody really was in fear. And we looked at the source of the fear. Why was everybody so afraid? Today, I want to kind of shift the focus now to David, who is the example of courage. Now, courage is, you guys have heard this definition. It's not a new definition. But courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is moving on in spite of your fear. That's what courage is. I have a hard time believing that people, even David, is not a little bit nervous. I mean, you get a little bit intimidated by a guy, particularly the size of Goliath, who's 9'8" at the smallest and has a 125-pound sword with 175 pounds of armor. I mean, that's an intimidating figure. That's an intimidating person. So I can't imagine that there was not a little bit of fear in him. But we don't see that anywhere in the text. We see everybody else is scared to death. Everybody else is frightened. Everybody's living in fear. But David is courageous. And that's what I want to examine today. We're not going to kill Goliath today. We're going to get to that next week, okay? So I hate to but there's a lot of verses to cover and a lot of angles to cover, and so I'm taking my time through this, and I hope you guys are okay with that. Even if you're not okay with it, we're going to do it anyway, okay? So begin inverting verse number 12. So last week we got up to verse number 11, and what was the last thing of verse 11? It says, "Now Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine. They were dismayed and greatly afraid." So that's how we kind of end last week. Everybody's scared to death. Now David comes on the scene, beginning in verse number 12. Now David was the son, he's the son of an Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and who had 8 sons. David was one of 8, and the man was old, advanced in years in the days of Saul. The 3 oldest sons of Jesse had gone to follow Saul to the battle. So remember, they're in this, the valley of Elah. The Philistines are on one mountain. The Israelites are on the other. The Goliath, this Philistine giant, would walk down into the valley and he would challenge the Israelites. The acoustics there were incredible. Seriously, they are. That they could hear him talking. They could hear what he was saying. He's challenging them to come down and fight. 3 of David's brothers go to the battle to help Saul out. So, and it gives their names there. Their names are Eliab, Abinadab, and Shammah. Verse 14, David was the youngest, and the 3 oldest followed Saul. But David occasionally went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And so here we have, remember in chapter number 16, David has been anointed king, but he's playing the harp at the palace to soothe Saul, because Saul is having these fits of depression and anxiety. So they're using music to soothe him, and David is the one that plays the music. And remember, he plays it so well that they've said, "Hey, why don't you come live with us? Why don't you come live with us here in the palace?" But David cares about his family, and he sees that things are not going well at home with the 3 oldest brothers gone. So he leaves the palace occasionally, the Bible says. He leaves the palace and he comes back home and helps out with the sheep and helps out with the responsibilities and duties around the house. So that's what's going on here in this text. And this David there are so many types of Jesus Christ in David. It's incredible. And this is one of those types where David is in the palace, but he leaves the palace to go care for the sheep. We have Jesus, who is in heaven, in the glories of heaven. He leaves heaven to come care for us, the sheep. There's all kinds of types of Jesus Christ and David. David represented or gave us a picture of what Jesus would be in so many ways. So, verse 16, and the Philistine drew near and presented himself 40 days, morning and evening. So he's been showing up every day for 40 days, and people are getting less and less courageous and more fearful. It says verse number 17. Then Jesse said to his sons David, take now for your brothers an ephah of this dried grain and these 10 loaves, and run to your brothers at the camp. And carry these 10 cheeses to the captain of their thousands, and see how your brothers fare, and bring back news of them. Now you got to understand, this is pre-Instagram. There's no Facebook Live. There's no news. There's no print. There's nothing. Okay? So the only way that people found out information was through word of mouth. So there's no print. You can carve it out on some stones, I guess, and run it back. But you can communicate that way. But so the only way that people found out information was through verbal word, and that was the only way people knew what was going on. So here is Jesse, who has 3 boys that are in a battle, and I know some of you have had kids go to war, or had kids in the military, and I imagine you think about them 24/7. You don't know where they are, you don't know what they're doing, you don't know what they're experiencing, but they're on your mind. Well, Jesse's a normal guy who's got boys that are in a conflict and they have heard nothing for 40 days. So he sends David to do some meals on wheels. It's really what we have here, is meals on wheels. So he's going to take food to his brothers, and he's going to take food to the captain. And Jesse has the idea of, like, I'd like to know some information. What's going on? So what happens? Verse 19. Now Saul and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah fighting with the Philistine. So David rose early in the morning, left the sheep with a keeper, and took the things that went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the camp as the army was going out to fight and shouting for the battle. For Israel and the Philistines had drawn up in battle array, army against army. And David left his supplies in the hand of the supply keeper, ran to the army, and came and greeted his brothers. Then he talked with them. There was the champion. Then as he talked with them, there was the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, coming up from the armies of the Philistines, and he spoke according to the same words, so David heard them. So this guy does the same thing. We got a routine. They're in their battle gear. They're ready to fight. Here comes the Philistines. They're waiting for somebody to make a first move. Nobody will make a move. So they it's like they get all geared up and then nothing happens. So they go back to bed, wake up the next day, get all geared up, nothing happens. And Goliath just comes out there and he says, come on, somebody come fight me. So David hears this for the first time. Verse 24. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him and were dreadfully afraid. So you get the gist, right? They're all scared. So the men of Israel said, have you seen this man who has come up? Surely he has come up to defy Israel, and it shall be that the man who kills the king the king will enrich him with great riches. Will give him his daughter and give his father's house exemption from taxes in Israel. So Saul is like, I don't want to fight him, but I will take care of you if you will. It's really what he said. So this is the deal. Like, money talks, right? You ever had somebody, eat this and I'll give you $20. Okay. We money talks and power talks. And so he's kind of hitting all the buttons here. Sex, money, relationship, because he said, what does he say? Whoever kills this giant, I will give my daughter in her hand in marriage, and I will enrich him, and he will never, his father's house will never pay taxes in Israel again. Pretty sweet deal. I did my taxes this week. Pretty sweet deal, right? A lot of money in the pocket. So David hears that. Then David spoke to the men, verse 26, who stood by him, saying, what shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? He's like, do you guys hear what he's saying? And you're just going to sit here? Well, you can imagine how well this goes over, right? Verse 27, the people answered him in this manner, saying, so shall it be done to the man who kills him. Verse 28, now Eliab, his oldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men. And Eliab's anger was aroused against David, and he said, "Why did you come down here, and with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness?" Okay. Now we're going to talk, I'm going to deal more with this next week, because I want you to listen to how people talk to David. And we're going to talk about how the devil and how he tries to intimidate, or how he tries to speak to us. And so here, he's belittling David. Aren't you the shepherd boy? Don't you have some sheep to look out for? Let us real men take care of this situation. So he says, "Why have you come down here, and with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and the insolence of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle." And David said, this is one of the most famous verses in the Bible, "What now have I done? Is there not a cause? Why are you saying this to me?" Verse 30. Then he turned from him towards another and said the same thing, and they answered him as the first one did. So everybody's basically saying the same thing that Eliab's saying, which is shut up and go home. Leave us alone. All right? Verse 32. Then David said to Saul, so now he's not talking to his brothers anymore. Now he's talking to the king. "Let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go fight with this Philistine." And Saul said to David, "You're not able to go against the Philistine to fight with him, for you are a youth, and he is a man of war from his youth." But David said to Saul, "Your servant used to keep his father's sheep. And when a lion or a bear came and took a lamb out of the flock, I went out after it and struck it and delivered the lamb from its mouth. And when it arose against me, I caught it by its beard and struck and killed it." Okay, now let me explain something to you. David did this incredible feat, but there had to have been some supernatural help for him to do this. I don't know if you've ever gone to a zoo and looked at a lion, good luck fighting that with your bare hands. David did, and David won. And I think that God gave him the victory, right? And he believes that. Verse 34, David said to Saul, "Your servant used to keep his father's sheep, and when a lion or a bear came and took the lamb out of the flock, I went out and struck it, delivered the lamb from its mouth, and when it rose against me, I caught it by a beard, struck and killed it. Your servant has killed both lion and bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, seeing he has defiled the armies of the living God." And then he says this in verse 37. "Moreover, David said, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine." And Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." I love that right there. You know what he's saying? Good luck, brother. That's exactly what he's saying. Go, and the Lord be with you, okay? Now, this is where I want to stop today. And I want to back up, and I want to point out some reasons why I think David was so courageous when everybody else is scared. I think that there are some characteristics that stick out in this passage that made him so courageous, okay? And that all of us really, as children of God, should strive to have in our lives. Number one, this is probably the most carnal one, or the most secular one. He had a strong sense of duty. What made David so courageous? He had a strong sense of duty. One of the things that the text points out is that if there is one thing about David that you get from the previous passages up to this point, is David was a man of character, right? You notice what he does. He cares about the sheep. He doesn't just, when his dad says, "Hey, I want you to go and check on your brothers," he doesn't just leave the sheep. He makes sure that a keeper is lined up to take care of the sheep. You see that in his life. He does things well because it's his job to do. He takes every job that's given to him with great responsibility. He doesn't see any job as a small job. And this is what I think a lot of times we tend to do in our culture a little bit. We tend to classify jobs or put jobs in certain categories, lower some, higher some. Anything that God, whatever my hand finds to do, I should do it what? With all my might. So if I preach in front of a group of 250 people, or I preach in front of a group of 10, I should preach with the same intensity and the same enthusiasm because God's given me a job to do, right? If I work in Chicago, I should work with the same energy that I would work, I don't want to have less energy because I just work in Topeka. If I'm a waiter, or if I'm a waitress, or I clean the bathrooms, I should clean the bathrooms of a joint as well as if I ran the company. There's no job too small. And David is a man of duty. He is a responsible young man. He's a hard worker. He's enthusiastic. You see that with his dad tells him to go to the battlefield, and he runs to it. He's not taking a stroll, man. There's some enthusiasm. There's some eagerness about it. He's not lazy. He has a strong sense of duty. And this is why I think that he is not afraid, because he just sees that there's a job to do, and he wants to do that job. The king needs help, so David's there to help him. His dad needs help, so he's there to help his dad. His country needs help, so he's there to help his country. He has a strong sense of duty. David reminds me a lot of what police officers and firefighters and, of soldiers. 9/11 will always be burned into all of our minds if you were alive on that day and you remember the events of that day. What's one of the most vivid memories is everybody's coming down the towers and the firefighters are going up the towers. Why do they do that? Strong sense of duty. I have a job to do. I have people that I need to rescue. I need people that I need to take care of. I need to fulfill the job for which I was paid to do. Well, it may cost you your life today. Well, I'd rather die doing my duty than die being lazy. I think that was soldiers. One of the most vivid, you'll see a commercial, you may see it tonight, is I think for the Marine Corps in particular is, they talk about how everybody's running for the actions. The Marine Corps are going, the Marine Corps agent and soldiers are going towards the danger. What drives people to do that? Strong sense of duty. Love for their country, right? Love for their country. Love for their fellow man. So this is David. David is a man who is a great warrior. And one of the reasons why I think he is a great warrior is he has a strong sense of duty. I'm a soldier and this is my responsibility and I'm going to do it well. So my challenge for you is just do whatever God gives you to do to the best of your ability. Take ownership of it. Be a person of character. Be responsible. And, we live in a world where people are constantly making excuses or looking for the easy way. David knows there's a job to do, and he's going to do it no matter how hard it is. Quit whining, for crying out loud. Just do our jobs. Do what we're supposed to do. Have a sense of duty, responsibility. David was that. 2, the reason why I think he's not afraid, not only because he has a strong sense of duty, but 2, he has a strong sense of purpose. We see that in verse number 29, when his brother's saying, shut up and go back to the sheep. What does he say? What have I done? Is there not a cause? It's interesting to me, isn't it? Because David says, what's going to happen to the one that kills that giant? Remember he says that? And then he asks somebody else, what's he doing there? He's getting affirmation. In the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, a fact is established, right? So he asks what happens to the person who kills that giant, and then he asks somebody else to affirm it. Now, why is he doing that? Because what happened in chapter 16? He got anointed to be king, right? So David probably in his mind is like, okay, I'm supposed to be the next king. How's this going to work out? He walks up there and they says, whoever kills this giant is in the royal family. Boom. I think that's what's going on in his head. Because he knows that God has ordained him to be the king. He doesn't know how he's going to get there, but he hears that, and I think that's why it's in the text, because it's saying that David understands that his life has a purpose, that God is writing his story. There's 2 ways that I can go through life, right? One of the ways is that I can go through life is I can go through life thinking that things are random and nothing that happens has meaning. That's one of the ways that I can go through life. So I can just say, you know, I just happen to meet this person. I just happen to be in this event or this place at this time. I just happen to run into this person. Now, that's how I can go through life. I can just think everything's lucky and random. Or I can go through what I believe the Bible teaches, which is events happen for a bigger purpose. Now, I would just challenge you in this way. If you could ever in your mind get that every person that I meet, every encounter that I have, every event that happens, God is working something out, it would change your life. And it actually makes your life more exciting. There's a building on Wanamaker. It's a 3-story building. It's a bank. It's right behind Starbucks. Can't think of the name of the place. Yes, Heritage Bank. Thank you. Okay, if you ever have to go to the 3rd floor of that building, it has the slowest elevator in the history of mankind in that building. And so the other day I had to go to the 3rd floor, and so I go to the 3rd floor, and I get what I need, and I get back in the elevator, and this lady goes, "Wait!" I hear her yelling, "Wait!" Because this is what the thing does. It goes down to the 1st floor, and then it takes about 20 seconds to go. And you just sit there. It's like we're on the 1st floor, and they go, beep, and then the doors come open. And so the lady got in, and we're joking. And you know what? That lady walked in that elevator, and I was like, okay, God didn't allow this to happen by accident. This lady is... Now, look, I got nothing spectacular to tell you about that story. Other than, I didn't meet that lady in that elevator by accident. We didn't have... Maybe I just needed to joke with her, and maybe she just needed she needed to laugh, she needed a word of encouragement. Maybe God put her in my life for a reason to just maybe... I don't know why, but I did not see that event as random. It kind of makes each encounter really neat. Because this is the way I can go through my life, and I can look at everybody, and I can think, well, what is this person going to do for me, or what is this person going to do for me? And that's just a miserable way to go through life, because you get disappointed at everybody. Or you can go through life and say, okay, God's put this person in my life. How can I help them? God's brought this person in my life. How can I minister to them? David has this strong sense of purpose. And he walks onto this battlefield, and he knows, look, I'm supposed to be here right now, at this time, in this moment. God did not randomly drop me in here. There's a purpose for me being here. And let me tell you something. There's a purpose in everything you do. You don't live randomly in your house. You thought you picked it out, but God picked it out. You say, man, I really went in and I wooed the interviewer, and they gave me that job because I am a smooth talker. Let me just get over yourself, right? Now look, you work really. I'm not diminishing anybody's work, and I think God gives us a work ethic. We want to work hard, and I get all of that. But if I just see, okay, there's a bigger purpose here than just getting a paycheck. There's a bigger purpose here than just living in a neighborhood. There's a bigger purpose here. There's a reason for this encounter. I think that's what sets David apart. I think most people just kind of go through life, and it's just their heads are down, and they're just kind of focused on themselves. David's looking at the bigger picture and saying, okay, God, what are you doing? Why do you have me here? Who can I help? Who can I serve? Who am I supposed to meet? Look, I'm an introvert, so this is tough for me to hear. Because I get in the elevator and I want to put my head down and just kind of, please don't let her talk to me. Please don't let her talk to me. Please don't let her talk to me. Do you introverts in the room know what I'm talking about? Huh? Now you outgoing people like, hey. I envy you, but I'm not that way. But I have to kind of fight that. You know what I'm saying? I have to say, okay, God put me in this elevator with this lady, And we're going to be here for at least 45 seconds to go 3 floors. So I can stare emptily at the floor. I can try to be an encouragement to her. Okay, I got it. I'm out of time. Verse number 3. How about point number 3? Why is David courageous? Because 1, why church? Because he has a strong sense of what? He has a strong sense of duty. 2, he has a strong sense of what? Purpose. 3, he has a passionate love for others. You know why I would say that Saul and everybody else was afraid? Because you know who all Saul and everybody else was thinking about? Themselves. When I'm selfish, I get scared when I'm threatened. So I'm threatened, so now I'm scared because I care most about me, right? Isn't that, Jesus kind of raised the bar, didn't he, when he said, love your neighbor as yourself. See, so that's why everybody's scared, because they're like, oh man, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I don't want to die. David loves his nation. He loves his brothers. He loves Saul. He cares about them deeply. So he's willing to walk into Goliath and fight him because he has a passionate love. Love is his driving force. Listen to what he says. Let no man's heart fail because of him. So he's what is he worried about? He's worried about what everybody else is thinking, right? He's worried about how nervous everybody else is. He says, everybody just calm down. I got this. I'll go fight him. What does that show? Passionate love for others. You mothers in this room know what I'm talking about. I've seen 125-year-old. I've never seen a 125-year-old. I've seen 125-pound women take on 300-pound men because they mess with their kid. Right? You're like, lady, you're going to get crushed. But what is the motivation? Oh, maybe even worse is messing with the grandkids, right? So what makes this mother rise up against this man who is doing something to her child when she's going to get crushed by this man? What moves her into the battle? Love for that kid, right? What moves you? What moves you to stand up to others shows what you love. David has a passionate love for his God, his people, his family, and his country, and he will stand and face a man that's twice as big as him because he's like, nobody's going to talk about my God this way. That's called love, man. I was just thinking about, there's one of the patriotic songs that we sing. Loves country more than self. That's what motivates people. It's what they love. Number 4. Why was he not afraid? He had a deep confidence in God. He had a deep confidence in God. Do you see that in verses 34 through 37? Okay, this lion came and attacked my sheep, and I fought it, and I beat it, because God delivered that thing into my hands. And this lion came, this bear came and did the same thing, and I fought that bear. I do not recommend this, folks. But David cares deeply for his sheep. And here's these lions and these bears, and they're just hungry. They're just wanting some meat. It's the food chain thing, and they're a little higher up. David's like, nope, those are my sheep. You're not eating those. So he fought him. God delivered them into his hand. So what did he have? He had confidence that God would deliver this Philistine. Most people believe in God, but very few have confidence in him like David did. Did you hear that? Most of us believe in God, but how many of us have confidence in him like David did? That's rare. There's a few guys in the Bible that had that, right? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Remember, they built this huge image. They're supposed to bow down before the image. They won't do it. And they said, look, guys, I don't think you understand. If you don't bow down to this image, we're going to throw you into that furnace. You're going to burn alive. And they're like, look, we really think that our God will deliver us from that. But if he does or not, we're not bound down to your image. I mean, what do you really think God can do? Is there anything too hard for the Lord? No. Now, does it always end well? You got a whole book. It doesn't work out sometimes, right? Sometimes Hebrews 11 is the chapter of faith. The people had great confidence in God. Some of those people end up sawed in half. Some of those people did end up being fed to the lions. But some people he gave great deliverance. In any case, they were all delivered eventually. David has deep look. He's like, I'm gonna take you on, man. I'm gonna take this giant on because I believe God will deliver him into my hands. I have great confidence that me and God can do anything. That's really the source of his strength, is deep confidence in God. That's where the courage came from. He's like, I got God on my side. Look, if I chose, if some of you guys are like, hey, let's go play ball, let's go play basketball, let's have a 3-on-3 tournament. Now, there are no professional athletes in this room. I mean, there may be professional athletes, but I don't think there's any professional basketball players in here. Look, if I had LeBron on my team, y'all are going to lose. Right? You can have the best, tallest guy in here. Going to lose. All I got to do is feed it to LeBron. I would have great confidence that I can whip whoever in this room comes up with 3 players. I got LeBron. You're going down. Right? Sorry to do the sports analogy, but just hang with me. You understand? How about we just go through life and like, man, I got God. Be all right. Oh, you may kill me, but God will take me to heaven. I've told you this story before. The old preacher that he was getting robbed. The guy came up to him, stuck a gun in his belly and said, give me everything you got. He said, I'll give you everything I got. He goes, give me everything you got or I'm going to kill you. The preacher had glasses on. He pulled him down, looked at the guys robbing him and says, you can't scare me with heaven. I've always loved that story. You can't scare me with heaven. Okay, do you genuinely believe that when you put your trust in Jesus, that heaven's your home? It changes the way you live. Because you're not scared of heaven. Oh, you're going to kill me? I go to heaven. Good deal for me. This was his confidence. His confidence was in God, that God would see him through, that God would take care of him. And I believe that God will see me through till death. And he'll see you through too. Don't be afraid. Be like David. Comes from a strong sense of duty, a strong sense of purpose, a passionate love for others, and a deep confidence in God. Let me just close by saying this. Look, if you're here today and you're scared for the future and you're scared for what the future holds, the Bible tells us that we can have hope for the future. We don't have to fear it. That God has given us a way to not fear death, and that is through his Son, Jesus Christ. So if you're here today and you have never trusted in Jesus Christ and him alone to save you, today is that day. You can lay your head on your pillow at night and you're like, look, if I die in my sleep, I'll wake up in heaven. There's no comfort like that. Well, how does that happen? That happens through acknowledging that you're a sinner, basically admitting that you can't do enough good to get you to heaven. That Jesus Christ, though, came, you believe in him, believe that he came to this earth, and he died on the cross as your substitute, and he rose from the dead, proving that he had victory over death and hell. And if you will believe in him, what did I read to you before communion? For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. Whoever believes in him will not perish, but have everlasting life. So I beg you today to believe in him. And then once you believe in him, then you live every day with confidence, knowing that this day is ordained by God. God has a purpose for it. God is bringing people in my life. God is writing my story. I may live to be 49. I may not. I may live to be 105. I may not. I may die tomorrow. But God wanted me to preach this sermon today, so he kept me alive. I preached this sermon today. And God wanted you to hear it because he brought you in here. Nothing happened by accident. God's at work. Look for God. Trust in him. Okay?
Thank you again for listening to our series on 1 Samuel with Pastor Mark Doss. If you have questions about today's message, please contact our church office at info@topekabaptist.org. Give us a call at 785-862-0988 or check us out online at www.topekabaptist.org.